Hello, and welcome to today's episode of In the Moment. I'm your host, Michael Clark, certified life coach, former therapist, and owner of Clark Coaching Services. I was a therapist for 8 years of my career and have been a life coach for almost 2 years now. And I just want to give back and share my knowledge and experience with you to try to help navigate this thing we call life. Thank you in advance for listening, and I'm so glad you're here. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today, I want to talk about something that so many women struggle with quietly, sometimes for years, and yet almost nobody talks about openly enough. And that is self-confidence and imposter syndrome. That feeling where you walk into a room, a job interview, a relationship, a business meeting, or even a new opportunity, and there's this little voice in the back of your head whispering, "You don't belong here. You're not good enough." They're eventually going to figure out you have no idea what you're doing. And what makes this even harder is that a lot of women experiencing imposter syndrome are actually intelligent, capable, compassionate, hardworking people. From the outside, they often look like they have it together. But internally, oh, that's another story. They're questioning themselves constantly. And if that's you, I really want you to try to hear this clearly today. You are not alone in this struggle, not even close, even though it may very well feel like you are. Now, I've worked with women from all different backgrounds, different ages, cultures, careers, education levels, personalities, and this issue comes up far more than people realize, especially among women who are trying to build something, change careers, speak up more, start over, be more of a leader, or simply believe in themselves again. So today, I want this to feel less like a lecture and more like a conversation. I want us to really unpack where self-confidence issues come from, why imposter syndrome develops, and most importantly, practical ways to begin rebuilding confidence in a real and sustainable way. Because confidence is not something only certain people are born with. A lot of confidence is learned or built and rebuilt. So first, let's define imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is essentially the persistent feeling that you are not as competent, intelligent, qualified, or deserving as other people believe you are, even when there is evidence that you are capable. Here's what it looks like. You might accomplish something, and instead of feeling proud, your brain says, well, I just got lucky, or I fooled them somehow, or I'm not actually qualified. And women experience this in so many areas of life: career, motherhood, relationships, business, education, social situations, even physical appearance sometimes. And one thing I really want women to understand is this: imposter syndrome is not always a sign that you're incapable. A lot of times, it's a sign that you're stepping into unfamiliar territory and just outside of your comfort zone. Imposter syndrome can also be about growth, and growth can feel uncomfortable, especially if your nervous system is used to staying quiet, avoiding attention, or trying not to make mistakes. Now, let's talk about where low self-confidence can actually come from, because confidence issues don't just magically appear out of nowhere. Many women were raised in environments where confidence was never properly developed. Maybe nobody encouraged them emotionally. Maybe nobody celebrated them. Maybe they were criticized more than praised. Some women grew up hearing things like, "You're too emotional. You're too loud. You're too quiet. You're too sensitive. You'll never make it. You're not smart enough." And after years of hearing those messages, eventually the brain starts accepting them as truth. Sometimes confidence issues come from family dynamics where love felt conditional, where approval only came through achievement, where mistakes were punished and punished harshly, where there was little emotional support. And one thing I see often, especially with women, is that some women spent their entire childhood trying to avoid disappointing everybody else: parents, family, partners, culture, community. But they never learned how to build a relationship with themselves. And that matters so much because self confidence is deeply connected to self relationship. Now, another huge factor can be cultural or language barriers. I've worked with women who are incredibly intelligent, but because English wasn't their first language, they constantly doubted themselves. They would hesitate before speaking, overthink every sentence, assume they sounded unintelligent. Meanwhile, the people around them often admire them for speaking multiple languages. Think about that for a second. Someone can have a skill most people do not have and still feel inadequate because of insecurity. That's how powerful self doubt can become. And then there's another layer: women trying to succeed in environments that still feel heavily male dominated. Corporate environments, leadership roles, business ownership, STEM careers, executive spaces. Sometimes women are carrying the pressure of feeling like they have to prove themselves twice as hard just to be taken seriously. And over time, that pressure can slowly chip away at confidence, especially if they've experienced being interrupted, talked over, dismissed, overlooked, or made to feel smaller than they are. Some women began questioning themselves not because they lack ability, but because they've spent years in environments that constantly made them question their value. And I think it's important to say this clearly: confidence struggles are not weakness. A lot of times, they are emotional survival responses built over years of experiences. Now that we have level set and defined the reasons for low self confidence and imposter syndrome, let's shift toward rebuilding. Confidence is built through thoughts and self talk, but that's not all. Confidence is also built through evidence. A lot of women are waiting to feel confident before taking action, but confidence usually comes after action, not before it. For example, a woman might say, I don't feel confident enough to apply for that job. But what actually builds confidence is applying, interviewing, practicing, learning, failing, trying again. Confidence grows through experiences that teach your nervous system, I survived that, I handled that, I can do hard things. And this is why avoiding everything that scares you actually strengthens insecurity. Avoidance teaches the brain that situation must be dangerous, but gradual exposure teaches the brain maybe I'm more capable than I thought. When I was taking martial arts and going through my first test to become a black belt in Taekwondo, I remember standing there after 2 hours of testing, going through both physical and mental challenges. Just when I thought it was over and I had finished, my Taekwondo master pointed towards two cinder blocks. And laying across the cinder blocks was a single brick someone could have easily used in their garden. It was 5.5 inches wide, 2 inches thick, and about 20 inches long. He pointed to it and said, Go break it. I was in shock since I had never done anything like that before. I was terrified, and to top it all off, It was in front of about 50 people, including my family and friends and other strangers who had come out to see their loved ones test for their respective belt level increases. I walked up to it, not having a clue how to even approach the problem of breaking this 2-inch thick solid obstacle. The master, seeing that I didn't even know how to stand to start the process, came over and showed me the proper stance and how to strike the brick. I lined up, checked a couple times, and went through it like butter. I tell you all of this to say this. If I did not believe that I could break that brick, I never would have. I had to have the confidence in myself in order to do so. And now I love breaking bricks, and I've broken enough to become a 4th-degree black belt master in Taekwondo. Another powerful confidence building tool is keeping what I call an evidence journal. And this sounds simple, but it is incredibly effective. Every single day, write down 3 things you handled well, 3 wins, 3 efforts, or 3 moments where you showed courage. Not perfection, just progress, or simply just made an effort. Women with low confidence often dismiss their successes automatically. They minimize everything. I only did this. It wasn't a big deal. Anybody could do that. No, your brain has been trained to overlook your strengths. So now you need to intentionally retrain it. And here's another important. Pay attention to your self-talk, because many women speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone they love. Imagine a woman preparing for an interview. Instead of, I'm learning, I'm improving, I bring value, her internal dialogue becomes, you're going to embarrass yourself. You don't belong there. You're not qualified. If you repeated those messages to yourself every day for years, of course confidence would suffer. So sometimes confidence work starts by simply noticing how harsh your inner voice has become and asking, would I speak this way to my daughter, my friend, someone I care about? If the answer is no, why is it acceptable toward yourself to talk to yourself that way? Think about it. Another thing I encourage women to do is stop measuring themselves against somebody else's highlight reel, especially online. Social media has created this constant comparison culture. You're comparing your behind the scenes struggles to someone else's curated presentation. And comparison destroys confidence because it keeps moving the goalpost. There will always be someone prettier, richer, further ahead, more experienced. But confidence isn't built through becoming, quote unquote, better than everyone. It's built through becoming more secure in who you are. And I also want to say something important for women trying to succeed professionally. You do not need to know everything before you begin. A lot of women hold themselves back because they feel they need 100% certainty before taking action. Meanwhile, many people with half the preparation are confidently applying, speaking, building businesses, networking, and learning as they go. Perfectionism and imposter syndrome are often connected because perfectionism says, if I cannot do this perfectly, I shouldn't do it at all. But growth requires imperfection. Every confident person you admire today was inexperienced at some point. They learned through doing, not through waiting until they felt ready. And honestly, procrastination is often connected to fear too. A lot of women are not procrastinating because they're lazy. They're procrastinating because they're afraid of failing, afraid of rejection, afraid of judgment, afraid of not being good enough. And when the fear is driving procrastination, shame usually makes the cycle even worse. Now, let's specifically talk about combating imposter syndrome. One thing that helps tremendously is separating feelings from facts. Feelings are real, but they're not always accurate. Feeling inadequate does not automatically mean you are inadequate. Feeling nervous does not mean you are incapable. Feeling uncertain does not mean you should stop. And sometimes women need to physically pause and ask themselves, what actual evidence do I have that I cannot do this? Not fears, not assumptions, actual evidence. Because imposter syndrome thrives in emotional storytelling. It creates narratives that sound emotionally true, but are not grounded in reality. Another helpful exercise is creating what I call a proof file. Positive feedback, compliments, achievements, kind messages, performance reviews, successful project wins. Save those in a journal, notes on your phone, a notebook, and revisit them when self-doubt starts spiraling. Because when imposter syndrome shows up, the brain develops selective memory. It remembers failures and ignores evidence of competence. So you need tangible reminders of reality. And another major piece here is community. Women heal confidence wounds in supportive environments, not isolating ones. If you constantly surround yourself with people who criticize you, belittle you, compete with you, or emotionally drain you, confidence becomes very difficult to sustain. But supportive people can help reinforce healthier self perception. And no, confidence does not mean arrogance. That's another misconception. Confident women are not necessarily the loudest people in the room. Confidence can look quiet, grounded, calm, steady, and it can sound like this: I deserve to take up space too. My voice matters. I don't need to shrink myself to make others comfortable. I may not know everything, but I'm willing to learn. Part time, I teach a 10-week class on digital marketing. And during week 1 of each 10-week cohort, I let the learners know that even though I have over 20 years experience in digital marketing, and even though I have taught over 20 cohorts, I don't know everything. And that they will ask me a question that I'll not know the answer to. But I also promise them that I will do 2 things. 1, let them know I don't know the answer. And 2, find the answer for them or help them find the answer. The point is that even though I am confident in my digital marketing teachings, I am still learning and am not perfect, and that's okay. And finally, for women listening who are trying to build careers, businesses, or leadership roles in what can still feel like a man's world, please remember this: you do not need permission to believe in yourself. You do not need unanimous approval to pursue your goals. And you do not need to become somebody else in order to succeed. One of the most damaging things women do is abandon themselves trying to fit into environments that never taught them how to value themselves properly. And I think many women are exhausted from constantly trying to prove they deserve to be in the room. But your value is not determined by who doubts you. Let me say that again. Your value is not determined by who doubts you. And sometimes confidence begins the moment you stop asking everybody else to validate your existence. Now, before we close today, I want to leave you with a few practical confidence building challenges. Number 1, do one thing this week that intimidates you slightly. Not something overwhelming, just uncomfortable enough to challenge the fear. Maybe speaking up more, posting something online, applying for the job, networking, setting a boundary, saying no, taking the class. Confidence grows through repetition. Number 2, start tracking effort instead of only outcomes. A woman may apply for 5 jobs and get rejected, but the confidence win was she applied. She took action instead of hiding, and that matters. Number 3, pay attention to who and what influences your self-image. Some women need healthier friendships, healthier environments, less comparison, less criticism, less judgment, and more support. Seek out those who support you. And number 4, celebrate yourself more. Seriously. Many women accomplish difficult things and immediately move on to the next responsibility without ever acknowledging themselves. Pause long enough to say, I handled that. I'm growing. I'm proud of myself for trying. That matters more than people realize. Now, if you struggled with self-confidence or imposter syndrome for years, please know this does not make you broken. It makes you human. Especially if you spent years under pressure, years being criticized, years doubting yourself, years carrying emotional weight quietly. Confidence is not built overnight, but it can absolutely be rebuilt. One thought, one action, one boundary, one risk, one courageous moment at a time. And if nobody told you this recently, you are probably far more capable than you currently believe you are. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. And if this conversation resonated with you, if you saw yourself somewhere in this episode, just know you are not alone in this journey. And also feel free to reach out to me. You know how to find me. Clark Coaching Services. There's so many women quietly trying to rebuild confidence, rediscover themselves, and finally believe they deserve more out of life. And maybe this is the beginning of that process for you too. I will leave you with one of my favorite quotes from Winnie the Pooh. You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. Thank you.